It is dotNYC number 7. We're still figuring out what we're doing. We're still changing everything we're doing. We're trying to understand how to make a great podcast out of the CUNY Graduate School of Journalism about the intersection of technology and media and journalism and fashion and finance and advertising and everything in New York. And the great thing is, this week's show is live from New York. I've always wanted to say that. At Social Media Weekend. And so there's two great things going. Whoa, we have an audience. Woo! We bribed them and drugged them to do that. And the best news of all is Sreenivasan, the master, the god, the wonder of social media, the owner of Social Media Weekend. We're so proud to have him here at CUNY. And we're going to be co-hosts for this week's episode with three great guests coming up. Sree.
Thanks for having me here. Folks, give it up for the CUNY Journalism School for hosting us here and making us feel at home. Jeff Jarvis and the entire team here, and Dean Sarah Bartlett and your team. It's amazing and very warm, beautiful place for us to be.
We are so grateful you're here and bring your incredible Sree fan club, right guys? So one more thing to explain first before we get into the actual show. We're in the show, but I'm going to explain for this. So we're doing something I am really excited about on top of all this, which is we're going to broadcast this live. We are broadcasting this live right now on Facebook Live, using the first camera that was developed for the Facebook Live API, called the Mevo. And there's one you can't see up here, but here's what it looks like.
Wow, look how small that is.
So here's what's, and tell me if I get this wrong, right? I'll try to explain it. The Mevo is a 150-degree camera. So there's one little camera like this sitting right in front of us. It's taking this whole stage. And it's like having a 4-camera shot in one. If you go around this room, we have these big cameras, very expensive, replaced by that, which is about $400. It ties into an app on an iPhone or an iPad, Android soon, I hope. And on that app, what we're going to try to do is show you what happens here. If we can focus down on the camera, can you get down on this? So what happens is, and your name again is? Nathan. This is a simple view. So if Nathan clicks onto Shree's face, that is a close-up of Sree. That will be going out as a close-up. When I sit there, if you move the box over and click on my face, it'll be a close-up of me. And then pull back. M-E-V-O. I think the URL is getmevo.com. Yes? Getmevo. So this is written for the Facebook Live API. Right now the audio is going into that. There'll be soon audio input available. And it's $400. I was talking with the editor, or the publisher of a major Mexican newspaper and telling him about this, and he said, cancel the plans for the new TV studio. He wants this. So I'm excited. This is not out. It's not shipping until July. I saw it at Facebook F8. I ordered one 10 minutes later. I can't wait to get it. And we're very excited that Livestream and Mevo brought the camera in to play with here, and it's kind of a first for us, and so that's where we are. Right. So before we get the first guests up, Sree, you have been doing Social Media Weekend for how long?
This is the 5th edition.
5th.
Yeah.
2nd here at CUNY.
That's right.
Every year you might think, okay, I've done it. That's it. It's over. What this year would you say is the biggest new thing?
Well, I think what you're experiencing right now, the Facebook Live, the fact that messaging has become so important. I was just thinking about the things that I didn't care about last year that are now consuming my life. Things like WhatsApp, where we're talking, our family's on 4 continents and we're able to communicate in a deep, meaningful way. Or Facebook Live, or the way that Periscope is changing. Or Twitter, we heard this morning from @Nikita on Twitter. Twitter's doing lots of new things to be more useful, more relevant in people's lives. So I think that social media is constantly changing and is getting more useful and becoming a kind of concrete part of our lives in a way that we may not have thought of. And I think the election here in America tells us that we have to pay attention with everything that's happening as a result of it.
Now, in the previous panel we had about good and evil social media. Mm-hmm. The point was made that there's no such thing as social media, or the social media is the wrong term.
Word, yeah.
And I kind of agree with that too from a different perspective. In a sense, we in media are egotistical and think that anything that looks like media is media. But social media is something different, I think. I think it's not just about making content. It's not about filling space or time. It's about connecting people. Is social media even the right term?
When I talk about social media now, I really talk about the whole mix of things, digital, mobile, and it's hard to separate them out. And I think that's important for us to keep in mind, that we're not just talking about say, just Twitter or just Facebook. And Hal, one of our colleagues here, Hal Strauss, said to me that listening to Helen Clark, who is head of UNDP, with this amazing organization that makes millions of lives better every day, she's running for Secretary General of the UN, and to hear her talk about how she uses social, she's talking about the digital universe, and that the next Secretary General, her or someone else, has to understand this natively almost. It doesn't have to be a native, but that's how change is going to happen. Because I'll tell you, the Caliphate understands, the Islamic State understands what they're doing on this. The good guys also need to understand.
Well, speaking of good guys and bad, Donald Trump and Hillary will now fight it out on social media. I started off the day just noting that the New York Times this morning was news-splaining social media to the world in the Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump tweets, and then about the 3 parenthesis anti-Semitic acts. It's phenomenal to me that media constantly have to explain this. Do you still get called on all the time to say what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, well, you and I remember this from a few years ago. I would tweet every time a journalist would call me and say, Twitter has come of age because X happened, right? Yeah. When the plane landed in the Hudson, when the rover landed on Mars, all of these were Twitter comes of age. And the journalists like doing the same story again and again. And you once commented on one of those things. And so I think now it has arrived, but it's also changing and morphing in good and bad ways. And I think that journalists, many of them, leave social media opportunities on the table. I find that they're not optimizing. That's why we have this whole conference here for 2 days, and I hope people will continue to watch on Twitter, on Facebook, on mine, and on SM Weekend, the SMWKND hashtag, and the Twitter account, that we're offering practical, useful things that you can do to be better at this. Our colleague Jeremy Kaplan, who's a professor here, tweeted and posted and did an actual session on how to use your phone better. And I thought I knew a lot about phone tools, but there were 20 tools that he did that I had never heard of, and at least 5 of them I want to use today. The problem is, how do you fit this in to everything else and keep your day job and your families and everything else?
Right. I don't tend to ever put it down. Have you been caught in those moments where people tell you that you have to put it all away?
Yeah, well, we initiated this at our house. We have 13-year-old twins, and when they were 9, we announced no technology at the dining table. And they were not using any technology. This was us planning for the day they would be on Twitter and Instagram and all of that. And so it was a good exercise for us, and it's still very meaningful that there's no technology. But now it helps us that they know that there's no technology. They're on Instagram only, but there are obviously kids who are on Snapchat and everything else. They turned 13, they can be on Facebook, but we're holding them off.
So I know lots of smart social people. You know lots of smart social people. My rule is that anyone over the age of 21 can't figure out Snapchat. Have you figured out Snapchat?
I have not figured out Snapchat, but in part, I don't have the time to figure it out. I have a Snapchat account. You can probably find me on it, but I've never sent or received a Snapchat.
Oh, we got to fix that today. What's your account?
I presume it's Sree. I'll have to go in and look. I'll take a look. But I've never done this because I don't have the time. But I should tell you, I said that about Facebook. Yeah. I said that about Twitter. I said that about Instagram. But this is where I've drawn the line. I had to join WeChat this year. WeChat, you may know, is the biggest social media and messaging app in China. And that's because at the Met, China represents the largest number of in-person visitors. Wow. And I was at lunch with the co-founder of Tencent, which is the parent company of WeChat, and he said, "Are you on WeChat?" And I said, "No." And he said, "You have to make an account." So he forced me right there to make an account. And I learned so much about this, but it's very interesting to see how different accounts work, but there are just too many accounts, not enough time.
And I was just in Europe last week at a conference, one of 3 conferences, one by the Springer Publishing House in Germany on distributed content, otherwise known as social media, and Line
oh my
is
God.
Huge in Korea and Japan. And
yeah.
the Economist is concentrating its efforts online because Asia is where its growth is.
No, that's
who knew?